Deputy John McGuinness, yours is question 69.
Writing in July 2018, Carrie Lawless outlined her experience suffering from Lyme disease, and part of that, what she said was, my life became this tiny thing, someone who had worked hard, played hard, travelled extensively, loved hard, lived life to the full. I became a shadow, housebound, a virtual recluse, and one or two good friends to sustain me. That was her experience. She thought about ending it all. This is Lyme disease, and with the protests outside this gate on a regular basis. Minister, what are you doing to ensure that this matter is dealt with?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
I want to thank Deputy John McGuinness for raising this issue, and I've received correspondence from the Deputy on it, and I know it's an issue you're advocating strongly on. The Health Protection Surveillance Centre has a Lyme disease subcommittee which has been tasked with producing a report which covers awareness of Lyme disease amongst clinicians and members of the public, identification of best international practice in raising awareness about Lyme disease, development of policies for primary prevention of Lyme disease, exploration of ways in which to improve surveillance of Lyme disease, and the development of strategies to raise awareness of Lyme disease, particularly in areas of higher tick populations. The Health Protection Surveillance Centre is aware that the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence in the UK has undertaken a systematic review of Lyme disease, which has resulted in the Institute publishing new Lyme disease guidelines. These are based on the most exhaustive systemic review yet undertaken of the evidence around Lyme disease, and focused on producing recommendations based on best available evidence relating to diagnosis, management and public awareness of Lyme disease. The final report of the Health Protection Surveillance Centre's Lyme disease subcommittee was delayed to ensure that the evidence presented in the Institute guidelines can now be factored into its final report here in this country. I think it's appropriate we should learn from best international practice and experience. I am pleased to inform Deputy McGuinness, though, that the Health Protection Centre's report will now be finalised next month in November, at which point it will be considered by the Scientific Advisory Committee. At this juncture, it would be inappropriate to consider making changes to the testing, treatment and management of the condition. But I am pleased to say that, and I know this is an issue people have been campaigning on for quite a long time for recognition in this country, that by next month we will have the report of the Special Committee on Lyme Disease that will then be considered by the Scientific Advisory Committee of our Health Protection and Surveillance Centre. And I hope that we'll be able to then make informed decisions in relation to how we can improve treatment, awareness and diagnosis in this country in line with other jurisdictions.
McGuinness.
You can't ignore the words of this lady: beat down, broke, defeated, I couldn't face another 10 years. And then you listen to the reply that you have just given. And while work is ongoing on this, it has to be said that this Lyme disease recognition, if you like, campaign has gone on for years with little or nothing being done. And while you're waiting for the report, the fact of the matter is that in France, they apparently, that government has a model of care and understanding in relation to Lyme disease that could be copied by this country. There's no efforts being made to inform the public in any meaningful way, and the only organisation that I see doing this is TikTok. And Anmar writes to you on a regular basis on behalf of this organisation, highlighting the issues, highlighting the costs of going to Germany for their diagnosis and further treatment. And it's extremely unfair that people in this country that have Lyme disease can, like Carrie Lawless, be left undiagnosed from 2007 up to 2017. We're ruining the lives of people.
Minister.
Where simple mistakes are being made and not being recorded.
Well, certainly, Deputy, when you look at my record in relation to this, it's not one of doing nothing. It's one of actually asking that we update our scientific advice here, not just based on our own experiences and our own evidence, but also looking at what they've done across the water in the UK. And we will have that basis of information only next month, which will then enable us to make informed decisions in this regard. It's important to say that Lyme disease can be very successfully treated in many cases using common antibiotics. And these antibiotics are effective at clearing the rash and help to prevent the development of complications. Antibiotics are generally given for up to 3 weeks, and if complications develop, intravenous antibiotics may be considered. TikTok Ireland, a support group that you've referenced that does excellent work to encourage awareness, prevention and treatment of Lyme disease in Ireland, have requested that the guidelines produced by the International Lyme and Associated Disease Society be used instead of those recommended in the 2012 consensus statement. And also, you'll probably also be aware Deputy McGuinness, that a meeting took place between my department and members of the cross-party action group on Lyme disease only last month on the 25th of September 2018, and indeed TikTok Ireland were represented at that. So I do accept that this is an issue in which there's an awful lot of concern. That I do accept the testimony you gave me there from a person that you've been in contact with, and I do hope that by this time next month we will have an evidence base on which to move forward.
McGuinness.
I just want to impress on the Minister again the urgency of this, because we tend to do an awful lot of reports and we don't learn from other countries. I've highlighted the fact that France seems to be leading the way here, but Canada has a similar approach to this particular disease, and now in New York the same thing is happening. They're having a cross-department approach to solving the issue around Lyme disease. Now, if all of those countries are taking roughly the same initiative, and if it's being debated within the European Union to have a similar approach across the European Union, then surely we can force, as a matter of urgency, the report to be completed and the appropriate actions then out of that report to be taken. I urge the Minister not to allow this to go on for long more, and I know that TikTok and others they recognise the work that you're doing in this area, but they point out that time is hugely important to them, and that I will ask you to recognise that in the context of action being taken.
Minister, to conclude on this matter.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. I recognise reports are only as good as the implementation of them, and the commitment that I give you when the report goes to the Scientific Advisory Committee, I and my department will base our actions, and I use the word actions, based on the scientific advice, and I would indeed be happy to meet with you to further discuss those actions and implementation once that report has been received in November.